happy that you welcomed us here.
I'm thrilled. Feels like we, we're having family guests. Because I know it was a real stretch and a push for guys to get up here, guys and gals to get up here in Alexandria. But you got to see it when it's all lit up. It's Christmas time. You're going to have a good time here. If you walk past that table and you didn't pick up some of the shameless, Alexandria marketing stuff, shame on you. There's maps there. There's shopping. Try not to leave here without hitting King Street, at least walking up and down or riding up and down. We'll try to get you out of here by at least 1:30 today so you can hit the road or shop Alexandria, okay? So, we're looking for volunteers for our next one in February, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll talk about that on the back end. All right? Kick it off.
Okay. Well, if everybody, let's just go ahead and run around the room. Most of us know each other. We do this every time, but just in case we have some new faces or faces that we haven't seen in a while, we'll go ahead and do it. I am Karen Pierce. I work in Chesterfield as a maintenance inspector.
I'm Phil Pugh, co-chair of this committee. Hoping to be co-chair of this committee again for the coming year. I don't think it's official yet, but I think it's out there and anybody can apply for the position. Is that correct? All right. Now, I was hoping to see Kathy Cook in the room. She's not here today, but we'll talk more about that later on in the meeting once the presenters do their thing.
I'm Teresa Gerber, City of Richmond, and for everybody who was at, I don't know which meeting, I think the Charlotte meeting, and signed a card for Charlie and I from our accident, thank you. It was very much appreciated, made me cry. We are both slowly getting better, but it is what it is. We're just getting older, so thank you.
Mike Casella, City of Richmond.
Bonnie Friedman, City of Richmond, Property Maintenance.
Gary Green, Arlington County, and like you, I'd like to thank everybody that signed the card when I was out sick. Big spirit lifter for me, big deal.
And Gary has a new nickname. I don't know if anybody knows what it is, but I thought it was so befitting. You go from being face down in the airport to being a presenter today. We're tagging him Iron Man, all right? So good to see Gary back up and bossing folks around, all right? All right, nice shirt too, man. All right. Richard, you had him counted out, didn't you, brother?
I'm Andy Marchetti with Hanover County Building Inspection, Property Maintenance.
Brian Eastep, Christopher County, Property Maintenance.
Ron Dennis, City of Roanoke.
Tom McGann, Chief Property Code Inspector, Prince William County.
Greg Dudash, Town of Blacksburg, Maintenance Code Division.
Greg.
Yeah.
Jorge Flor, Arlington County.
Kevin Woodward, Arlington County Code Enforcement.
Fresh back from Jamaica, huh?
Yeah.
All right. All righty, man. Who's next? How about handsome fellow with the camera here? Who are you?
Wendell Phillips with the City of Alexandria.
All right. Who's next? Anybody?
Second row.
Take a pick.
Hey, Marcy.
Ron Reynolds, State Farm Marshal's Office.
All right, Ron. Good to see you in the room.
Daniel Robinson, Arlington County, Code Enforcement.
Wendy Bacon, City of Alexandria.
Wendy.
Richard Freeman, Alden County Code Enforcement.
Trouble in the room.
Alden County Code Enforcement.
Johnson Wilson, Arlington County, Code Enforcement. Moon leadership.
Now, I hear that it was mandatory for our Arlington County crew to be here. Is that right?
Don't see smiling.
That's Gary the Butcher Green. You get him here, huh, brother? All right.
Terry Moore,
Good to see you back in the room, Terry. All right.
Carolyn Davis, City of Richmond. Michelle Howard, City of Richmond.
John Orson, Town of Herndon.
All right.
That's right.
Welcome, everybody. Glad to see you guys made the push up here.
Who's up there? Speaker over there?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. One of our presenters, named Mike Mackey. Mike's going to be the first presenter this morning.
Okay.
Mike, you're with Gang Task Force. You're Gang Task Force Coordinator, right?
That's right. That's
okay.
right. Yep.
Mike's going to tell us a little bit about himself and what his program does. As we get through the agenda items, again, Mike is first, then Jorge, and then Gary's going to end us up with a case study, okay?
Yes.
Okay, let's do minutes.
Yeah. All right, so we will actually probably look at presenting the May minutes at our next meeting. Our lovely secretary here wasn't able to get to them. She's had a lot on her plate, and we're going to excuse that, absolutely. So we'll get those to at the next meeting. We do, however, have the last meeting's minutes to present, so if y'all want to look at those and just somebody make a motion to approve and second and all that kind of stuff, or if you need to amend them.
Does everybody have the minutes in their hand? Need a moment to peruse through them? We're not going to read to you today.
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right.
Motion to approve. Second.
Is there a second? Thank you.
I got you down as the,
Second.
okay, all right. And all approved? Is that how we say it? How we say it?
Motion approved.
Yes.
Yeah.
All in
Yeah.
all in favor, there we go.
There.
There we go. Okay. I'm sorry, I get stage fright. There's a camera right on me.
That's that
Camera.
All right.
So that's what just happened. Okay. Whew. So co-chair comments. Do we want to talk about those?
Sure, we'll talk about the end-of-year conference, VBCOA's end-of-year conference. How many people attended that? I know Arlington was heavy in attendance. Let me give you the gist of what our goals and objectives are for performance for the organization. Basically, Kathy would like to see us continue in the direction that we're going, with more of a focus on marketing ourselves as, you know, the whole organization. We're going to take a stand to better improve the property maintenance community within VBCOA and standards and practice. Also, there's a really heavy focus on leadership. In the future, we're going to be doing quite a bit of leadership kinds of trainings and presentations. How many people in the room right now, by show of hands, are formal leaders in your current organization? Formal leaders? All right. Gary, you not a formal leader? Richard, you are now a formal leader? Formal leaders.
Titled.
In a leadership role.
Okay, sorry about that.
Right. I mean, we can lead from wherever we are, but just how many formal leaders are in the room? And that's one of the things we want to work on. We want to work on growing folks that work with us as leaders. So that's what we're doing here in Alexandria. In the city of Alexandria, in code administration, we have something called Leadership Circle. It's better than a book club where we get together. We've read some leadership books. One of the books, most powerful books that we've read recently is called Monday Morning Mentoring. And I'll give you some information before you leave today about that. But we have 3 presenters today, so I don't want to get long-winded. Our focus again for the year is leadership and improving the image of property maintenance, inspections, and what we do. Do you have something?
In a minute, I was actually just clearing my throat.
Go ahead. That's allowed. Go ahead.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think that what you mentioned, because I didn't go to the end of your conference, but you went and what you came back and told me was that Kathy also, or Chris also, they were all very supportive of us continuing the training at our actual meetings.
Correct.
And kind of putting, you know, as of our last meeting and the meeting before that, we kind of advised everyone that we were going to not shelf the property maintenance module 2, but we were going to kind of focus on doing individual topics at the meeting so that we get the training out. And I think that's what we kind of enjoy a little bit more anyway. Yes? Yeah. So that's, it's now accessible to everybody. And eventually we'll just kind of compile what we're doing here at our individual quarterly meetings and put that into a PM module 2.
Both presidents in the organization applauded the Property Maintenance Committee for the work that we're doing. We rarely go outside of our group here to get trainers, with the exception of Mike Mackey and a couple other folks. We have enough skill set and knowledge in this room alone that we could teach till the cows come home for years. So that is something that Karen and I are going to be reaching out to you. As you see today, we have a couple of presenters, 2 of them from Arlington and then Mike. So we're like to see folks from, other localities step up and do a presentation. Doesn't have to be a PowerPoint. We are working on case studies. I'm really excited about the case study Gary's going to do today because it's close to home, and we have already, most of us have already experienced something like this, but I'd like to see how this team pulled it together. Without further ado, you have more? Karen?
No, I don't have anything for that. Well, now moving on to, that's all for that.
Okay,
Subcommittee reports, I guess I just kind of went over that. The education subcommittee is
Right.
not disbanded or anything, but we're just taking a different format.
Yeah, and I think we get tons of value here by teaching each other that whole iron sharpens iron theory, where it's already been done in somebody's locality. We're just sharing how we get through it, okay? We did have the Norfolk team here, Christina Reynolds, as well as Lorenzo Harris, and I got emails from them around 5. I got the first one from Christina around 5, and she said that she was unable to make it. All is forgiven. But then an hour later, we got an email from Lorenzo saying that he was involved in a building collapse and needed to be in the city manager's and the mayor's office this morning to try to get that thing going. So lift folks up in prayer when they're unable to make these meetings, and they're in the trenches, because we've all been there. And if you haven't been there, you're going to get there at some point, which is why there's so much value in us teaching each other. Without further ado, let me introduce this handsome fellow down here, Mike Mackey, or reintroduce him. Let me tell you a little bit about what Mike and I are presenters in this quality of life meeting, which I have one of our inspectors right now presenting to the chief of police, the mayor, the city manager, and we stand before them and say, this is what our program has done. Right, Mike?
That's right.
It's pretty uncomfortable sometimes, but we get through it. One of the things that Mike brought to our inspection corps here is that there is some human trafficking going on in the city of Alexandria. In fact, we might be one of the main hubs or within the top 10 hubs in Northern Virginia. And since Mike gave us that presentation, 2 of our inspectors have come upon situations where there was overcrowding and things just didn't feel right. The hair stood up on their neck, something was hinky about the folks in the place. And I think in one instance, I think folks spoke Vietnamese, and one of them spoke a little English. And inspectors did the old divide and conquer, where they split the folks up in the house, and they kind of got a feel for who would talk to the inspector. And she got just enough out of her to learn that folks were there against their will. And we connected with APD. Mike, I imagine your folks got involved, and it turned out to be a happy ending, but folks were there against their will. And sometimes you can find yourself standing in somebody's home and really something's amiss, but you can't put your finger on it. So Mike's going to help us out with some questions and some telltale signs of what we should be looking for. Thank you, Mike. What do you think?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Phil, thanks, Wendell, thank you. As always, it's good to see you guys, as always. And I think in your jurisdictions, you probably find this as well, where you kind of cross the agency lines and communicate with one another. And it's really, really helpful, as Phil's story kind of points to. So I just wanted to start off with a quick story, and while I do these presentations, there's no such thing as a dumb question, and you'll know why I'm saying this right now. My first job ever was as a counselor in a runaway shelter in Houston, Texas, and I had been on the job maybe about 2 or 3 months, and what my job was for, I was to sort of manage the floor of all these kids who would run away from home, and who had been having trouble with it and stuff like that. So as you can imagine, you had some behavioral problems. So I was there, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks or whatever. I had training and this big manual of what to do. So I had this problem with this one kid, and I approached him and I tried to talk to him and tried to reason with him to behave better. And took the TV time away, the telephone. I mean, sometimes I think we had Facebook back then. This kid would have been, you know, a valedictorian of high school. So I went into my supervisor and I said, I was pulling my hair out. I said, I don't know what to do with this kid. And I talked to her about the situation. She looked up at me and she said, Michael, you got to read that kid the riot act. So I said, okay, great. And so I started walking out of the room, and I said, well, I might as well just say it. So I went back to her and I said, well, LaTanya, I'm happy to do that. However, in my manual, I don't have a copy of that. Could you provide me with a copy of the riot act so that I could read it to him? So, no such thing as a dumb question today. And that also speaks to the role of mentors in our lives and how one of the points that I'm going to make to you all today in all of your jurisdictions is that within, if you know the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. With crime prevention, substance abuse, teen pregnancy, poor school performance, gang involvement, and human trafficking, if we can do our best to get in front of this thing by providing, for example, more role models for these kids. In most of your jurisdictions, I know in Alexandria City here, we have a specified mentor program where people can volunteer 1 hour a week. And the impact of that on these kids is actually very long lasting. One of the reasons why kids get involved in human trafficking, one of the reasons is because they lack self-esteem. And that's pretty obvious, probably, to most of us, that this is why people get involved with crime and all that kind of stuff. But as the stories go, they're in the mall, and recruiters or pimps will walk up to these kids, 12, 13 years old, and they'll walk up to them and say, hey, have you ever thought about being a model? You're really pretty. And if the kid has the wherewithal and the self-esteem to kind of stand up for herself or himself, it's mostly girls, she'll say, oh, thank you. And you know, she's been taught refusal skills by her parents or by her teachers or by a mentor. So she'll say thank you and she'll move on. If she has a really low self-esteem, doesn't really know that anybody loves her, hasn't been complimented, doesn't feel good about herself, she says, oh, thanks a lot. And then that translates into maybe a relationship with this older guy whose whole mission is to make money. That's all he wants to do is make money off this kid. And what he'll do is he'll start to date her. This also happens on Facebook. My mom is a B. I hate my mom, blah, blah, blah. Oh, come on, girl. We can help you out. What's up? Yeah, I'll talk to you, whatever. This guy's 23 years old. Oh, well, I want a cell phone. She won't buy me a cell phone. I'll buy you a cell phone. All of a sudden, you get a cell phone. She gets a makeover. They decide that they're dating now, so she starts to have feelings for the guy. And then all of a sudden, let's take the trip to Baltimore. You ever had crab cakes? No, I had never had crab cakes. Let's go on a romantic trip to Baltimore. Oh, wow. My boyfriend drives. They go to Baltimore. There they are. They have dinner, whatever. All of a sudden, I lost the ATM card. And I don't have any gas. And we don't have a way to get home. And then it turns into, well, I know this guy up here, and we can go to his party. And then, oh, wow, my friends think you're cute. Do you mind, putting on a little show? I don't want you to do it. I love you. I don't want you to do this. But we can make some money off of this. It's just dancing. It's just kind of like modeling. And we'll take, we'll even take pictures. Maybe we'll kind of create a portfolio for you so that you can become a model. That's it. And then it turns into sex and awfulness for these kids. And this is happening right here in our area, probably in Richmond, probably in other areas of jurisdictions. And so when we talk about human trafficking, we talk about, like Phil said, people who are here against their will, often, maybe labor trafficking, but a lot of times it's sex trafficking. This is what we're saying. The reason I'm here today, and I'm really happy Phil and Wendell and others have asked us to come, is that a major problem with this whole thing of who has heard of human trafficking in the news in the last year? Has anybody? Yeah, I mean, it's in the news, right? And one of the biggest problems about victimization of human trafficking, anybody want to guess what percentage of victims are actually identified as victims? Just take a guess. Anybody? You won't get it right. You won't get it right.
3%?
Yeah, it's like 0.4%. Wow. Less than 1%.
Wow.
Which is and some people and some people well, human trafficking code and how does that make? All of us in the room can be like ambassadors or observers or whatever, and if we see something, we can at least notify folks. And that's the whole point of my being here, is to create awareness, to discuss with you about a little bit, excuse me, about what human trafficking is, to give you a couple tools. Let me start with one tool. This is very easy. There's a hotline. Phil mentioned that code enforcement in Alexandria talked to the local police, which is fine. Fine. If you see anything, if you hear of anything, both on your job, in your personal life, in your dealings with people, whatever, you can certainly call the local police. There is, though, a hotline, 888-373-7888. It's a national hotline. It's free. I would encourage everybody to put that in your cell phone so that if you're out and about doing your job, or if you see something, you're, it's a Saturday afternoon and you're down at the mall and you see some weird stuff, or a van with a bunch of people in it, and you're kind of wondering what's going on. If somebody approaches you, asks you if you want to have a date, and it's a kind of a weird situation that it goes on right up here at the metro station. If you hear something, see something, you can call that number and they will funnel the information appropriately. It can be anonymous, so you don't have to tell them where you're from. So that's one tool that we can talk about. So what are we talking about when we speak of human trafficking? Oops.
Hey Mike, there's a remote sitting right there.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's the left button.
It's not in.
Yeah.
It's not
Yep.
in.
1-888.
It's not working.
It's not in.
It's not in.
Okay. Yeah, 1-888-373. Sorry, 7888. You can call that number. Yep, 7888. And you can also text "be free."
Go ahead, keep doing your thing.
Okay.
I'll get you straight. So it's very important that I'm in front of you today, because you will see in your jurisdictions around the area that human trafficking training is going to go around all across the state. The governor just made an announcement about 6 weeks ago or so, working with the Polaris Project, which is a human trafficking resource advocacy center, about this issue, about providing education around human trafficking, and about all of us, no matter what agency, and really as residents of the Commonwealth, that we would step up both professionally and personally to get ahead of this thing. So let's talk about what this is. When we speak of trafficking, let's think of it this way. What's something that we sell in the business community or in commerce? What's something that we sell that's good? iPhones, right? Technology, coffee, food, right? Clothes. What's the latest thing on Black Friday? I don't know. TVs.
I didn't get TVs. Yeah. All those things.
Tablets.
What we're talking about here, obviously, is we're talking about selling as a commodity, as a thing, not a person, an individual, for either labor or sex. So we have a lot of people who are being victimized. A $10 billion business in the United States. A lot of money. And as Phil referenced, this area here, not just Alexander City, but the county and in DC, they ask victims of human trafficking, well, why are you here? Why are you doing this? And they say, there's a lot of money to be made around here. A lot of money. Which is awful, right? I mean, the moral compass of this whole thing is nasty. We're talking about force, we're talking about fraud, we're talking about coercion. So there's assaultive behavior, there's lying, there's deception that's going on to trick these people in. What's the oldest profession in the world? Prostitution, right? So there are some assumptions that go along with that about prostitution. Can anybody name a movie in the last 20 years that came out that actually is probably on the short list of movies that is kind of considered like a romantic comedy?
Pretty Woman, yeah.
Pretty Woman, yeah, exactly. I mean, Pretty Woman. There are these connotations that we have as individuals, and nobody on the spot, including me, whatever, connotations that we have about prostitution, about that, you know, maybe some of them do end up like Julia Roberts or Meet the Man of Their Dreams, and Richard Gere comes in and buys her all that stuff. Or what are some other things about prostitution that we could think of? If you had to defend somebody going into prostitution, what would it be?
They have children to take care of.
Yeah. You gotta make some money, take care of your kids. What else? Yeah, you gotta pay for school. The economy's awful, right? And I mean, it's sex. They're getting paid. I know it's sex, but they're getting paid. These are some of the things in our society that we talk about prostitution and turn. And you'd be surprised, really, even about the, I guess compassion is probably the wrong word, but akin to that, around Johns. Johns are those who buy sex from, so let's say just girls, but boys too, but girls, okay? There seems to be even some compassion around that, because when Johns get caught, sometimes people will say, well, if we, oh, cool. Okay, great. That if Johns get caught and they get prosecuted, I had somebody tell me one time, well, if they get prosecuted, that'll ruin their life. Woo! I was like, what are you talking about? Oh, so the life that he just ruined because he had sex with this girl and she's 12, and having sex with her with human trafficking is the same as raping her. But it's going to ruin his life. Okay. So I'm going to skip over because I don't want to, got about a half an hour, so I just want to go over some important stuff. Again, this basically says they're using force, they're lying, they're deceiving. It's not really it's not what one would think of as some 15-year-old standing at the bus stop and she gets kidnapped and then put it. It's not really that. It's more of a, that may be the case for labor stuff, and certainly deception in terms of we're going to bring you here to give you a job to the United States, and then once they're there, there's the coercion, the threat, the fraud of holding papers, of turning into ICE, of those kinds of things that are going on. But a lot of times it's the first story I told you where these kids are being dated by older men and then coerced into doing it. One of the guys that's in prison for, I think it's 50 years now, he's in Fairfax County. They asked him, how many victims did you have? I mean, this is after he was basically, he's in prison. He said, I have no idea. I can't count them. Scary, right? There's a lot of different kind of trafficking stuff. Gangs are getting involved in trafficking now. They were. We're going to talk about why. World 10 billion in the United States, over 30 billion in the whole world, and a lot of kids. Half of them are kids. Again, below 1% are actually identified. this is just briefly, this is a national trend. I want to get to some very important parts as it relates to code. So why is it going on? Because people are thinking that it's really not that big of a deal, that sex is something that people just have. It's not an important thing. Guys are entitled to having sex. Lots of guys use prostitutes, it's okay. People are sex crazed. Women actually secretly like this stuff. These are some things that people actually think. Victimless crime, she's actually getting paid for it, so what's the big deal? I've heard in meetings people say, well, I mean, they go to school and they're on the weekend they're making some money. I mean, but no, this is bad, and I'll get into it later. But again, I want to point out that these kids that are engaging in this behavior, it is psychologically, emotionally, and mentally the same thing as raping. That's what it turns out to be. That's what the mental health experts say. This is how important this is. Traffickers come in all shapes and sizes. I was watching the news on Halloween, and they had Georgetown has a huge Halloween party on M Street, and on the news, one of the broadcasters, reporters, was interviewing two guys who were dressed up as pimps, and it was this kind of funny thing that they had the jewels and they had the big hat and stuff like that, and there is some acceptance in our society about that culture, but it doesn't have to be as obvious as that. It can be really anybody. There's really no profile. So why use sex versus drugs or versus guns? If you were a person that wanted to make money, what's the benefit of using a girl for sex versus selling drugs or guns?
Less jail time.
That's actually changing, which is great. There's some, but I thought that too. But there's if they're caught and it's a federal crime, they're doing years, like tens of years, 40 years, 50 years if they're caught. So let's talk about that. There's a lot of money to be made, certainly, in both. But look at that in terms of the amount of money that they can make. We're talking about tons of money per month. Look at that, per month, $15,000 per month, one kid. Right? And here's the basic bottom line story, is that if I am a trafficker and I have guns in my car, or excuse me, if I'm a guy and I'm driving and I have guns in my car or I have drugs in my car and the police stop me, I'm going to have a hard time explaining what that white stuff is in the trunk. But if I have a 14-year-old girl there and the police say, who's that? What are they going to say?
My sister, my cousin.
Daughter, my cousin, my sister. Yeah, exactly. Can anybody answer that?
What's CSE?
Oh, sorry, commercial sex exploitation. That would help, huh?
Well, it could be just me,
Demand. If we take away the demand, our societal moral compass for stopping this stuff, the problem would go away. Really quickly, I'm going to go through. You know what I just realized? It's really funny. It's been 10:20 for about 15
Mike, don't worry about it. We got your clock.
No.
Pay no mind to that.
I know. I'm like, wow, this is going by really. So, want to take a break? I'll come back. So, a lot of stuff going on. House parties. Who has Facebook? Right. A lot of I have Facebook. A lot of us have it. On Facebook with gangs and with human trafficking stuff. These guys are on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on whatever the new thing is, and that's where they're doing a lot of their recruiting. Social media, blah, 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 all that stuff. And this is all the stuff that they go into. Okay, so they are recruiting where, bus stops, in school, some of the girls that are engaged in the trafficking will try to recruit for their pimps, for their traffickers. Skip parties where kids will blow off school and go to somebody's house and go drinking and smoking pot. Then they show up, and especially with gangs, then it'll turn into a initiation kind of a thing. It's all over. If anybody has heard of Brenda Paz, she was a local, and around here she was part of Marisol Truca, MS-13, and in 2003 she was part of a crime on GW Parkway, and she, the police basically said, if you cooperate with us, we won't charge you. So she did. And it turned out she had a photographic memory, like legitimately. And they ended up filming her and stuff, and she gave a lot of training and information on gangs. And the protective custody. And she left 4 times. And the 4th time she left, MS-13 took her out to Shenandoah and killed her. She was pregnant. And the reason I mention this is because 11, 12, 13-year-old girls, so they were born, what, 2001, 2002, 2000, she was killed in 2003. They knew who Brenda Paz was. Because gangs are telling them, you don't want to end up like Brenda Paz, so you better do what he said. This is Orlando, in the operation, the red light district, it certainly happens. Even down on Route 1, there are certain areas where people drive up and they can pick up and they can do, whatever they need to do in terms of that. Johns do that. Or in DC, 14th Street, that whole, the typical, or, the Julia Roberts, Pretty Woman kind of a situation. However, it's looking more like a van will pull up, a guy will get out and walk around, maybe say chica, chica, or knock on the door, and the door opens, and then there's 5 guys who live in there who have cash, their families are away, and some girl who's 12 goes in and she has sex for an hour and she makes money. And that's right there in Orlando. This is the important thing I wanted to point out for you all in your work. I'm going to send you this, by the way, through Phil, so you can review it again. But these are some indications in your work, and then I'm going to wrap up and do Q&A if you want. But these are some things to look for in terms of trafficking, both labor and sex. Like the barbed wire, the chain, guard dogs, cramped working or living conditions. I think Phil's point earlier was that it was all about cramped living conditions, which I know all of you touch upon. Excuse me. Isolation, loitering, security that's focused on the workers, exits that are blocked. These are kind of strange things. And you all are, 1,000 times more expert than I am at any of the premises issues, but these are what we're talking about. And it's not necessarily some kid that's going to be walking around with jewels and makeup and high heels. It's not that. It's a kid that's going to look like, I don't have the picture, but look like some regular middle school kid with a book bag and jean jacket. Look at this one right here. This is what I was particularly interested about. I don't know if we see that in our work, matches it, but this could be, these are some things that could be. So what I would encourage us to do, and that one too, like blacked out windows, there are things like that that kind of promote the secrecy, they're doing a lot more with, the police are doing a lot more with things like massage parlors and stuff like that, but if we are seeing things like that, it could be something. It could be something.
Mike?
Mike, we go back to that, what's table shower?
What's up?
Good layout, waiting area, small table shower, etc.
Oh, you know what? I don't know what that is.
It's a,
Let me find, you know what? I
have you ever
don't.
been to massage parlor? They have a huge shower
and they have a table laid out there, and some of them even have a separate sink in it. It's, I mean, when you see it, you'll know it. I mean, it's
Herndon.
Is it like an autopsy table that?
That's what I'm thinking.
Normally it's just one of those banquet tables, you can just fold out table that's in there. And you scratch your head, why is that in there? And they got handheld showers in there. I mean, it's just huge for any one individual to be in there.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody else see something that they want to clarify on? That's, yeah, I was kind of assuming it was like an autopsy kind of a thing, but that's good to know. Anybody else? What I want to get to, and then, so there's been a lot of prosecution around that, a lot of prosecution. But here's one of the bottom line pieces. We used to look at people that engage in this behavior as, call them prostitutes. They're prostitutes. They are bad actors. We have attempted to help them, and they have refused help. They're just incorrigible. They're easy. They're sex crazed. They're delinquent. They're criminals. All those things. But now we're really seeing these people, these kids, as victims, and we need to address it as such. This is a picture of victims in Alexandria City. They don't look like Jill or Roberts, right?
Nope.
This is saying the rape thing, as I mentioned before. It's akin to rape. That's what it really is, psychologically and emotionally. So we want to provide a lot of services for them, but it all starts with a call to the hotline or to the police. That's really where it all starts. Okay, so again, I have the number up there about the human trafficking hotline that I would encourage people to call. This is in your work, in your daily work, I would certainly encourage you to call there, but also in your personal lives and in your families, to communicate with other people about what you see. Kids that are at risk, again, are kids that are really low self-esteem, using drugs, skipping school, not connected. This is what we have problems, and they're really at risk. It's going on all over the place. So we need to be all over the place too. And the last thing is really, if you see anything like Phil was mentioned earlier, the person that made that call didn't know for sure if there was an issue. He didn't, but he asked, and as it turned out, victims were saved. So I would ask all of us to, if we have a feeling, if something's making our hair stand up in the back of our neck, and we are a little bit worried, make the call. Just ask. It's better to be wrong than to be quiet. That's my information. I have a handout with some websites and also the hotline, and there's also a picture of a table shower.
That's good.
So does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned something about ICE. What is the percentage of foreign-born prostitution going on in the city or state?
It's a great question. So what's the percentage of foreign-born within the trafficking realm, prostitution? I don't know a percentage, but there are, we think, just as many kids that are involved in this who are just have been born here, they've lived here, they've been around, and it's not as if they're being. You ever see that movie Traffic, where there's a van and there's all those people that are basically held hostage and kidnapped in a van, and there's like 20 people in the van. They get out, and what are they going to? It's not that. It's more the recruiting, the allure, and they're bringing them in that way. Sir.
We obviously touched on the number one reason for trafficking that's out there. But what about other forms of trafficking, like maybe the restaurant owners have workers in the restaurant that have been brought here illegally from another country? What do we see for signs for that type of trafficking?
Labor trafficking, I don't know a ton about. I'll find out more information and send it to Phil. But I think if we have any situations, again, where we are getting the sense that somebody is being held, that's really hard to identify, but somebody is being held kind of against their will to be a part of this process, that's when we would want to have a phone call. But I'll find out more information on labor trafficking. Yeah.
Will we be able to get that PowerPoint?
Yep. Yeah, I'll send it today. For sure. I'll send it. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody learn anything from that? First time you've heard about human trafficking related to code? Good stuff, right? All right.
I did learn not to come to Alexander.
Hey, Mike, did you hear that comment? Tell him about Arlington.
No, he said don't go to Falls Church.
He said don't come to Alexander, right? Arlington, man. Thanks a lot, Mike. Jorge Floor. Mike, you still got to go to quality of life?
I don't think so.
All right. Good for you. All right, Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Take care.
A lot of
Hey, Mike.
trafficking going on in the
Appreciate
business.
you, man. Thank you.
Sure.
Take care. While Gary's setting up, Jorge's passing out some information, I guess the PowerPoint, Jorge?
Yes.
Did Karen vet that?
Who? You're in trouble.
Ooh.
Thank you. Gary, you good to go?
Thanks.
Window, you want to grab your laptop?
Thank you.
Jorge and Gary. Let me ask the question. I told you a brief story about inspectors here coming upon something that didn't look right, and we got in touch with Mike and APD, and folks were rescued. In your localities, have you experienced anything like this? Have you found yourself standing in somebody's home? Would you care to share while Gary's setting up with Jorge?
We had one where we went into a single-family home, and going back to the commercial labor part in of it, they had bunk beds basically made out of wood throughout the rooms. And of course, their excuse was basically it was all family members and he bunked them, but they were like 2 or 3 high and not just one, not just one set. I mean, multiple sets going around the walls in the room. And we, just kind of assumed it was overcrowding, but further investigation, basically, he had a van, and basically they would load up in the van in the morning, go to the restaurant, and then basically load up and come back. They never came out in the yard or any, all the signs that he said, no interaction with the neighbors or anything like that. We got the police involved, and basically it turned out to be a ring out of New York City, and they got arrested.
And this was a mobile labor force, you think?
Yeah, they were a group of evidently working out in New York, then owned different restaurants, supplied labor to them, I guess.
Thank you. I had no idea. Sometimes I catch Alexander, the Metro, and get off at the King Street station. And when I first started talking to Mike about awareness to this issue, we were around King Street Metro and just standing out on the street. And he had a hard time looking me in my face because he's tracking everybody that's going on. And it turns out that Metro station is one of the main hubs for that kind of trafficking. So then it just kind of put me in tune to looking around and seeing what's what. and it illuminated some things for me. I mean, you really could see young ladies out there who look like they, 13, 14 years old, probably going to the mall, but then you also see construction workers tracking them. And I thought it was pretty bad. But he says that it's pretty much under control here. In Fairfax County is now having a bit of a problem with it. One of the things that Mike made very clear, that where MS-13 used to tag, do all their tagging and very visible, well, they've kind of gone underground and gone corporate. So you don't see a lot of tagging. We enforce graffiti here along with the police department, but we're not finding any of their tags. I mean, there's some other groups that are copycatting, but for the most part, like I said, they've gone inside corporate, Facebook, and that's how they're getting it done. So, good idea to keep your full heads on swivel, and we'll have Mike. Mike's going to send me the presentation. I'll get it out to you guys. He needs to redact some information from. Did he show the video?
No.
Okay, we also have a video that goes with that where you actually see it happening at a mall. So we'll get that out to you guys. Yeah. You might be wondering why in the world are we videotaping this? Because with VBCOA's new website, our deputy building official, Greg Fields, serves as the committee chair for that committee as the PIO. So we have direct access to getting content on the website, which we're going to do. So I'm glad to see everybody wore a nice shirt today, because you are going to wind up on the website. All right, exactly. All right, you guys ready, Jorge?
Yeah.
All right. Jorge Flor. It actually started out as a challenge. Talking to Jorge a few meetings back, and I challenged him to do something on cultural awareness. And so Jorge stepped up to the plate. We did harass him. We harassed him, and we kind of forced him into this. I worked with Jorge, I guess about 6 years ago in Arlington, and Jorge was of great value to me because I speak zero Spanish. I know how to say amiga and como se llama, right? That's it. I got those from Jorge, right? So Jorge has quite a bit of experience in dealing with folks across cultural lines. So without further ado, our Inspector Jorge Flor.
All right, thank you. As Phil mentioned, that I worked with Arlington County for the last 8 years. I like to start saying that I'm not expert on this subject. As Phil said, I was forced to do this. But since I came to this country from my homeland, which is Bolivia, I lived here for the last 31 years. So I travel the states from coast to coast, north, south. I actually know more USA than my homeland. So that gives me more perspective on how to deal with people from different backgrounds and groups. On this presentation about cultural awareness, I will give you some data from our county. As you can see, Arlington County is a diverse, dynamic, and professional community located across the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. Arlington County has one of the smallest land areas in the Commonwealth. As you can see, we are only 26 square miles, but we have 212,000 people according to the last census. And you can see on the bottom, we just became the richest county in the United States.
137 grand median household income?
Yes. Wow. About 2 months ago.
What you guys make? Okay.
We don't live there. We don't live there.
All right, okay, I'm sorry. That was totally inappropriate.
I could only see 2 people from Arlington County making that money.
We don't live there.
All right, sure. Okay, I don't even know where that is.
All right. We're giving you all this data, so we'll talk about why we giving you all this data. As you could see, 70% plus, they have bachelor's degrees. And more than 36% they have graduate degrees. So imagine that you have to deal with probably around 10,000 lawyers in the county. And from my side, from my point of view, being foreign born, not speaking the language I should be speaking, dealing with lawyers, do you think somebody will listen to me? They probably will not. But since I have something powerful, when I send a violation notice, then they will listen to me. They will. So, now, this data is from the last census. Only 2 groups on this are growing. And Latino and Black population are decreasing. And that's sad. Because sooner or later, the county will be only one group. We're talking about probably in the next 60, 70 years from today's. So, and that's sad. Our children in the schools speak 98 languages, and they come from 126 countries. So you see the diversity that we have in schools. And I'm glad that I work in a shop that our diversity is so great. We have a African-American supervisor, which is great. We have some African-American males and females. We have Latinos, myself and Miriam. We have a gentleman from Asia, another one from Africa. So, you know, you can see our shop is so diversified, which is great. This is the background, how our group make up. As you can see, Arlington has 22%, almost 23% of the entire 212,000 people. And Virginia has, as a state, only 10%. So it seems like Northern Virginia is bringing more and more people. All right, this is what we came for. This is the definition for the cultural awareness. An essential skill in the provision of culturally appropriate services. Cultural awarenesses entails an understanding of how a person's culture may inform their values, behavior, beliefs, and basic assumptions. To understand the cultural awareness, there's 2 key words that we need to learn. Dignity plus respect. That will make inclusion. And if you see the USA map, do you see yourself somewhere there? You probably are.
Alaska's not there at all. Just saying. Anyone? I'm not from Hawaii though, so I'm just.
That's a bridge to nowhere.
Yep.
You're there somewhere there. All right, now, how do you think you feel when you knock on somebody's door and wife answers the door? Do you ask for the husband to talk because the wall is falling apart?
No.
No?
The wife's answering the door?
Yes.
Well, she's the boss, so.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as you can see, within our profession, you don't have to look at the faces. You have to see what's wrong with the structure. You are there because of the falling wall. You're not there because they are interracial family, gay couple, people from India. We don't care about that. We only care what is going on with the structure, right?
A lot of times, I have one property that she is Indian, from India, and she has no control over the house. Her husband's over in India. She's not on the title of the house, she can't make any decisions.
But is she in the records of the county that she owns the property?
She does not own the property. She just,
But she's responsible for it, right?
she cannot do anything to that house without talking to her husband, who is in India.
Wow. I have the same case, and the husband is away someplace in, I think, one of the Arab countries. You know, the wife has to take care of it. Now, it will be hard to bring him to court. But that's one key thing. We have to teach ourselves how to deal with all kinds of different people. Do the observation. How do they react when you knock on the door? Because it's so different when you knock on somebody's door, like people from Japan. They won't greet you giving you their hand, okay? You might extend your hand to greet, but they will, right? People from Africa, they always say, what do you want? I do what I need to do. This is my house. So it's not because they don't know, because they've been doing that for the longest. No, what do we do in this case? Do we force them to do something? Yes, of course, but we have to do it in writing, right? And how do we teach them to do something? We have to educate. You're here in the US, this is the laws, this is what's going on, and this is how you fix it. Simple. But it's a long process. As a member, I mean, USA is bringing more and more foreign born, and this cycle will never end. Northern Virginia is almost to full capacity, so people will tend to go south and west. So sooner or later, Richmond City will have a lot of foreign-born people there. All right. Now, there's 3 key points in how to treat people with dignity. This is not my words. This is people who have done research and not just telling you what's what. How to approach a resident customer from a foreign country. You have to educate yourself on their culture. I mean, you won't be getting any master's degree on that, but at least read something about them. People from Asia, what do they do? I mean, for instance, I had a customer from, he's somewhere from the Gulf states. He won't talk to you unless you sit on the couch and talk to them about their family. So you got to get used to do that. Now you go to different house, might be different your approach to the people. So, and we have to be so versatile in this that we have to learn every day. Do we care about their feelings? You better. You better. The only way to get compliance is understanding them. They might be difficulty on the economics, maybe a broken family, maybe going at, worst case scenario, money, whatever. So, now, we have to be so very careful on draw a line when they asking you, hey, I don't know people, I just got here from my country 2 years ago. Do you know anybody who could do that for me? What would you say to that? No, I don't know. Look on the yellow pages, go to Google it, and you'll find it. Now, establishing relationship is very important before doing business with someone. That's what we just said. You have to know who you're talking about. You need to know how to treat them with respect, with dignity. Remember, they are paying taxes. They're paying your salary. Remember that. If there's no taxes, then there's no job for you. Simple as that. In our shop, probably only day 9, Gary will have jobs. Everybody else will go. And they're making the most money. Right? And the third is, dignity is maintained by the little things in life that help to reassure people when they are unwelcome in an unfamiliar environment. And that's every day. In Arlington County, I could say that. I remember one case that I had, like 4 months I got to the job. I went to that house, knocked on the door, and a gentleman came out. He said, what do you want from me? I said, listen, there's a complaint and blah, blah, blah. He said, get up my way. So I just had to step away from the property. And he told me right on my face, he said, nobody from a foreign country will tell me what to do in my country. So listen, you'll get something from me. So I just went back to the office, write the violation notice, and I get a call. He said, I'm sorry that I treat you, I mistreat you, I'm going through a divorce, I'm sorry. I said, that's fine. You'll get something on the mail, and once you read it, home. So he complied. No big deal. Did I get hurt? No. Was there blood in there? No. Do I care? No, that's everyday business for me. And there will be until I retire. Hopefully I'll retire from Arlington County. So.
There was some direct eye contact.
Is he bleeding? Yeah.
All right, now, the other point is respect. We have to respect all the people of culture, first of all and foremost. Be polite, be thoughtful and caring, keep them informed. That's one key thing, at least for me. If there's no conversation at the beginning, I'm sure the case will go sour along the way. But if I made contact, I'm sure somebody will comply. At the end, they will say, oh, thank you. I never knew that my wall was falling apart. So you have to do the first chatting with them. Now, what do you do about their privacy? Do you tell the neighbor who called on them what's going on there? What do they cooking for lunch? We don't. Whatever we do is within customers and ourselves. At least in Arlington, there's only few people could see our cases. not even people in the same agency won't be able to see. There's only few people. And whatever the public has access is so minimal. So, now, if you put these two together, dignity and respect, that's right. Can you read, somebody could read that for me? Kevin, go, please.
Dignity and respect are key principles of the Human Rights Act. When a person's dignity is compromised and no respect is afforded them, it is an abuse of their human rights. To ensure that the rights of individuals are upheld, the key principles of dignity and respect are fairness, respect, equality, dignity, and accountability.
So, do you understand the 5 points here?
Fairness, respect, equality,
And
dignity,
this has to be
accountability.
in our books every day, at least 5 days a week. You have to practice this every day with everybody, no matter who they come from, no matter who they are. As long as they pay your taxes, their taxes, they pay your salary. Right? Now, our type of work, we are so close to harass people, right? Either by going 1, twice, 3, 4 times to their houses until they comply.
They definitely feel harassed.
It does,
Yeah.
you know.
They
So-
definitely.
So we gotta be careful on this. I don't know if you want me to read all this, but I'm sure you can read. You all speak and read English, right? So there you go. Here's something that I found this very usable. Actually, I'm trying to talk to Gary about this and Dana. But since Gary was away for like 6 months, enjoying their vacation, so this is what we should be doing in every shop. Training employees annually to remind them about policies against discrimination. Recruit and retain a culturally diverse workforce. Address and report the respect for good behavior as soon as possible. Create an inclusive environment by acknowledging national holidays. Do we care about that? Do you care about when India's national holiday is?
If I'm aware of it.
Right. Say a case comes to you today, and today happens to be India's national day. Do you think the people from India that you're going to see, they care about code enforcement when they celebrate the national day? No. But if you include yourself and say, oh yeah, I know your Independence Day is today, so you are welcome to the environment. They might tell you more than you want to know, but that's okay, because that's one more case for you, right? Encourage action between staff to improve communication and eliminate bias to misconception. That has to be practiced every day. In our shop, I'm probably the one that jokes more about that, but it's only in our shop. It's between, actually, me and Kevin, that's it. He's the only one who permits me to say something and vice versa.
Guilty.
I want you see this video, which will give us a little bit more training on this.
Yeah, it's in the lower right corner. Whoa, well, that didn't work.
That's a great picture. That's almost real human.
Mm-hmm.
Get us there.
There you go.
Cultural diversity is about how two people would be communicating, and the way they would be communicating would be based on their cultural differences. So, for instance, in some cultures, they communicate by not giving eye contact, and that's considered as a sign of respect. In other cultures, to give eye contact means you're giving attention. So it's just acknowledging that people do communicate in a different way. Cultural diversity covers a number of differences. So when we're talking about differences in relation to behavior, attitude, differences in relation to values, to beliefs, gender differences, status differences. So there are a number of differences that would then come under the umbrella of cultural diversity. There are 4 tips that you could consider when you're interacting with somebody who is from a different cultural background to you. So the first tip I would suggest is using your observation skills. Observe how they're behaving, observe how they're interacting with you, observe their body language, and as far as possible, try and mirror and match the body language. So in some cultures, people like to sit and lean forward when they're interacting. And if you lean back, you're giving a message that you're not interested, which they would consider as an insult. So if you match how the other person is behaving, then the rapport will be building, and then you can then move on to the common areas that are there for the points of discussion. So that's tip number 1. The second tip is appreciate differences. Some cultures do behave very, very differently, which in other cultures would be considered as derogatory or insulting. So for instance, if you go to India, timekeeping is not so important there. People are fairly laid back, and they are not as bothered about timekeeping. If you go to Switzerland, as an example, if you're a minute late, it's considered as a real insult. So just be aware that there are differences in what's expected and in styles of communication. So appreciate differences. Another example I can give to you is in Northern Europe, people would communicate by giving facts. In Italy, people would communicate by sharing a lot of emotions. In Japan, people communicate by building harmony. And in India, people would communicate by asking about families. Okay, so when you're talking about differences in culture, it's about being adaptable to, so if I was interacting with somebody from Northern Europe, I would think, oh, well, they're just going to ask me about facts and figures rather than asking me about personal life, and I would then adapt myself to accommodate what their needs are. The third tip, which is really important, is don't assume that because that person represents that country, that he or she is going to behave like everybody else. It's about respecting the individual concerned. So they would be behaving and interacting with you, which is about their personal values and beliefs. So it's about respecting the individual concerned. And the last tip is about patience, fundamentally. I was interacting with somebody from southern India. in English. And when I'd said to him, "How are you?" a very simple question, in UK the response would be, "I'm fine, how are you?" Whereas in some parts of the world they'll give you 20 sentences to explain how they are, which in UK that would be covered in 2 sentences. So cultural diversity is also about being patient, that their style of communicating may take longer than what you're used to, and it's just about persevering through those patients. Yes, cultural diversity fundamentally is about acknowledging differences, and it's about respecting those differences. Their behavior, their values, their beliefs is done in a different way to you. It's not meant in a disrespectful way, it's just how different people behave in different circumstances.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Harvey. We are expecting lunch at any moment, but you know what? I think that we'd like to take a break now. Let's say 10 minutes.
It's only 10:30.
We'll take a 10-minute break. Gary Green's going to go ahead and set up his case study. By us having a void with our Norfolk crew, gives Gary more dog and pony show time. And he loves to talk. Everybody knows Gary loves to talk, right? All right, so.